Something happened inside a closed room at PGA Tour headquarters that nobody was supposed to hear about. And the man who walked out of that room made sure everyone knew exactly what went down. Bryson DeChambeau exposed Brian Rolapp, not with a leaked memo or a hidden recording. He just opened his mouth and told the truth. And that truth changes everything you thought you knew about who really runs the PGA Tour. If you're a real golf fan who follows this stuff week after week, you already know something feels off about the tour right now. The schedule is a mess. The big names keep disappearing, and the people in charge keep telling us everything is fine while the fans watch their favorite players walk away. Well, here's the thing. Everything is not fine. What Bryson said in that meeting cuts straight through all the corporate talk. He didn't attack Rolapp with insults or drama. He just pointed out something that nobody in that room wanted to admit. The CEO doesn't have the power everyone thinks he has. And when Bryson exposed that, the whole room went silent. Here's my take on this. Bryson isn't just stirring up trouble for attention. He's showing us exactly why the tour is broken right now. And I want to know what you think about this. Does Bryson have a point, or is he just protecting his own interests? Drop your take in the comments. And if you actually care about real PGA Tour news, make sure you're subscribed. This channel is built for fans who want the truth behind all the headlines. Not the fluff, not the PR, just what's really happening. Because what happened in that room isn't over. What Bryson exposed is just the beginning. What did he actually say that made everyone freeze? And why is Rolapp pretending it didn't happen? The thing about Bryson DeChambeau is that he's never been the type to keep his mouth shut when something doesn't feel right. And right now, a whole lot of things don't feel right. Let's start with the obvious. Bryson left the PGA Tour for LIV Golf with a contract that was reportedly worth $125 million. That deal is set to expire at the end of this season, and with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund announcing they're pulling the plug on LIV after 2026, Bryson is looking at a future that suddenly got very complicated. He's not the only one. Jon Rahm signed for $300 million, and he's got years left on that deal. But even he was reportedly blindsided by the news that the money train is stopping. Brooks Koepka already came back to the tour in January of this year. Patrick Reed followed him. The LIV experiment is collapsing faster than anyone expected. But here's what makes Bryson different from all those other guys. He's built something that doesn't depend on any tour. His YouTube channel has 2.69 million subscribers. That's not just a hobby, that's a media empire. And he's been very open about the fact that the PGA Tour's content restrictions have been a problem for him. He's talked about how he can't film videos during tournament weeks, how he can't bring content creators inside the ropes, how the rules that were written for a different era are now holding back the biggest personality in the sport. So when you put all of this together, you start to understand why Bryson is so frustrated. His tour future is uncertain. His LIV contract is ending. His YouTube channel is exploding, but the tour keeps putting up walls. And the man who's supposed to fix all of this? That's Brian Rolapp. Rolapp took over as PGA Tour CEO in the middle of 2025. He came from the NFL, not from golf. His entire background is in media and broadcasting. He looks at the tour like a product to be sold, not a tradition to be protected. And he's made it very clear that he thinks the business of golf is simple. Get the product right, get the right partners, and the fans will reward you. But here's the problem with that thinking. The product isn't right, the fans aren't happy, and the partners are starting to wonder if they're paying for something that's falling apart. Rolapp created something called the Returning Member Program. It's supposed to be the pathway for LIV players to come back to the tour without being banned forever. Brooks Koepka used it. He had to pay a $5 million charitable donation penalty. But he's back. Patrick Reed used it too, but Bryson didn't. And that's where this whole story starts to get interesting. Because Bryson looked at that program and saw something that nobody else was talking about. He saw that Rolapp couldn't actually force anyone to let him back in. He saw that the power didn't sit in the CEO's office. It sat somewhere else entirely. And when he walked into that closed meeting, he made sure everyone in the room understood exactly what he'd figured out. The Returning Member Program was supposed to be the solution. Bryson exposed why it was never going to work the way Rolapp wanted. To understand why this matters so much, you have to understand who Brian Rolapp really is and what he actually controls. And this is where most golf fans get confused. They see the title of CEO and they assume he makes all the decisions. That's not how it works. Rolapp can create pathways. He can make offers. He can set up programs like the returning member system. But he cannot force any player to accept those terms. And more importantly, he cannot override the will of the PGA Tour membership. The players themselves have the final say, not the executives. This is the part that Bryson understood better than anyone, and it's the part he exposed in that meeting. You see, the PGA Tour is owned by its members. The players are the ones who vote on changes. The players are the ones who decide who gets to come back. The players are the ones who ultimately control the direction of the tour. The CEO runs the business operations, but he doesn't own the place. So when Rolapp put together his returning member program, he thought he was creating a clean solution. Pay a fine, serve a suspension, come back to the tour. Simple, right? Except it wasn't simple at all. Because the players who never left the PGA Tour have a lot of opinions about the guys who walked away. Some of them are still angry about the antitrust lawsuit that Bryson and others filed back in 2022. Some of them feel betrayed by the players who took Saudi money while the tour was struggling. Some of them just don't want to share the stage with people who tried to tear the whole thing down. And here's where Bryson's exposure gets really interesting. He didn't just point out that Rolapp couldn't force his return. He also made it clear that the YouTube issue was a major sticking point for him. He said publicly that if he filmed a video during a tournament week with a content creator or a celebrity, that would be against the rules. He pointed out how the tour restricted someone like Garrett Clark from posting a Wednesday Pro-Am video. Now think about what that means. Bryson has 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube. That's a direct connection to fans that doesn't go through the tour's broadcast partners. When Bryson films content, he's building his own brand. He's creating his own revenue streams, and he's showing the world that he doesn't need the PGA Tour's media machine to be relevant. That's a massive threat to the tour's business model, because if Bryson can generate massive engagement on his own, why do the broadcast partners matter as much? If the players become the content creators themselves, what happens to the billions of dollars in media rights deals? Rolapp sees this. He's a media guy. He understands exactly what's at stake, and that's why the content restrictions exist in the first place. But Bryson has been pushing against those restrictions for years now. And in that closed meeting, he made it clear that he wasn't going to stop. Bryson exposed the real tension behind all of this. It's not just about money, it's about control. And that's what makes this whole situation so explosive. Because this isn't just one player complaining about the rules. This is the most commercially valuable player on the planet, openly challenging the authority of the CEO in front of other players and executives. Now, let's talk about what actually happened inside that room. Nobody has released an official transcript. There's no secret recording floating around. But we know enough from what's come out since to piece together what likely went down. The meeting happened at Tour headquarters in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. This was back in January of this year, the same week that Brooks Koepka went through the returning member program and officially came back to the tour. Rolapp had convened his leadership board. He had been working the phones with a dozen players and power brokers. His plan was to bring back only 3 LIV players. Koepka for his major championship credibility, Jon Rahm for his competitive presence, and Bryson DeChambeau for his commercial appeal. Those were the 3 names that mattered, and the players had been consulted about it. Some of them were resistant. There were conversations about equity distribution from the tour's for-profit enterprise. There were discussions about signature event sponsor exemptions. The details were messy, but the goal was clear: get these 3 back and move forward. But when Bryson walked into that room, he had different ideas. He'd been clear for months that he wasn't happy with the terms. He'd been clear that he wanted to film content freely. He'd been clear that he didn't think the penalty structure was fair. So when he sat down with Rolapp and the other executives, he didn't just accept the deal, he challenged it. And he did it in a way that exposed the fundamental weakness in Rolapp's position. He basically said, "You can't force me to come back, and you can't force the other players to let me come back. The membership has to decide, so stop pretending you're the one in control here." That's the exposure. That's the bombshell. Bryson called out the power structure and made everyone in that room face the truth. What Bryson said in that room changed the dynamic forever. But the real question is what happens now. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture here, because this meeting didn't happen in a vacuum. There's a reason why the tour is in such a fragile state right now. The signature events are creating massive scheduling pressure on players. The traditional tournaments like Colonial are losing their top names because the calendar is packed with bigger money events and majors. The fans are getting frustrated, the players are getting exhausted, and the executives are trying to hold it all together. Bryson's situation is a perfect example of this tension. If he comes back to the tour, he has to accept penalties and restrictions that he doesn't agree with. If he stays with LIV, he's stuck in a league that's losing its funding. And if he goes full-time on YouTube, he's effectively giving up on competitive golf at the highest level. None of those options are good for Bryson, and none of them are good for the tour either. So when Bryson exposed Rolapp's lack of authority in that meeting, he wasn't just protecting his own interests. He was showing the world that the system is broken. The CEO can't actually bring back the players. The membership has to decide. But the membership is divided, and nobody seems to know how to fix it. Rolapp tried to downplay the whole thing afterwards. When he went on the Rich Eisen show in May, he said that the tour wasn't spending a lot of time thinking about the LIV players. He said they were focused on making the PGA Tour better. He said he kept his private conversations private. But everyone knows that's not the full story. Because if the tour wasn't thinking about Bryson, why did they have a meeting in the first place? Why did they bring him in? Why did they offer him terms? The truth is that Rolapp needs Bryson more than Bryson needs Rolapp. The tour needs star power. It needs the YouTube audience. It needs the commercial value that Bryson brings. And Bryson knows it. That's why he had the confidence to expose the whole thing in that meeting. Bryson called their bluff. Now everybody has to live with the consequences. So where does this leave us? What happens next for Bryson DeChambeau and the PGA Tour? The deadline for Bryson to accept the returning member program terms was February 2nd of this year. He didn't accept them. He made that clear when he publicly said that his fate rests with the players, not with the executives. Since then, we've seen more movement. Koepka is back. Reed is back. The tour is slowly integrating the LIV defectors who are willing to accept the penalties, but Bryson remains on the outside, and his YouTube channel keeps growing. There are rumors that Bryson is considering a full-time content career. He's talked about playing tournaments that want him there. He's talked about building something independent of the tour structure. He's made it clear that he's not desperate to come back on anyone else's terms. And honestly, that might be the best move for him, because the tour is facing an uncertain future. The PIF funding is ending. The schedule is under fire. The players are getting older and more frustrated, and the leadership is struggling to adapt. If Bryson can build a sustainable career outside the tour, he might be better off in the long run. He has the audience, he has the talent, he has the brand. He doesn't need the PGA Tour to be successful, but the tour needs him. And that's the irony of this whole situation. The CEO can't force the return. The players are divided. The system is stuck, and the most valuable star in the game is perfectly happy to walk away. That's the real exposure. Not just that Rolapp lacks power, but that Bryson doesn't need him anyway. So what do you think about all of this? Is Bryson right to push back against the tour, or is he being unreasonable? Should the PGA Tour change its rules to accommodate him, or should he accept the penalties and come back like everyone else? Here's my honest opinion. The tour created this mess when they couldn't keep their players happy in the first place. LIV only existed because the PGA Tour ignored what the players wanted. And now that LIV is collapsing, the tour thinks they can just set new terms and pretend the last few years didn't happen. That's not how it works. Bryson is right to push back. But I want to hear from you. Drop your take in the comments. Do you want to see Bryson back on the tour? Or do you think he should stay on YouTube and build something new? And if you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of fan this channel is built for. Real golf fans who care about what's really happening behind the scenes. If you want more of this content, make sure you're subscribed. We're here to give you the truth, not the PR spin. Because here's the bottom line. The Bryson DeChambeau situation is not going away. The exposure of Brian Rolapp's lack of authority is not going away. The tension between the players and the executives is not going away. The PGA Tour is at a crossroads, and the decisions made in the next few months will determine what professional golf looks like for the next decade. Bryson exposed the truth. Now we all get to watch what happens next. One thing is certain. The days of the PGA Tour controlling everything are over. Bryson made sure of that.